Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Well, Piston fans, it finally happened. Damian Lillard has finally been traded, shocking the NBA world by being traded to the Milwaukee Bucks, and I don't think anybody saw that coming. But what we're going to talk about today is how this is going to impact our Detroit Pistons, or I should say, could possibly impact our Detroit Pistons. James Edwards, beat writer for The Athletic, that covers the Detroit Pistons, said per league sources, Detroit has been active in trade talks the last few months. And so we know that Media Day is Monday, and training camp opens Tuesday. So there certainly is the feeling that a lot of trades should be done before that so teams can have their rosters for the opening day of training camp and even for the media day, so that there's not the awkwardness of having James Harden come to the Sixers. And that's just going to be a interesting situation to see how that happens. But I think that sometimes when there's trades like this that have been in the works for a while, and this was a huge 3-team trade with lots of players involved, that it could be many domino effects from this trade, and it also just can spur other teams to want to make trades. So there's teams like, oh no, if you're Boston and Miami, how all of a sudden the Bucks are way better probably, and so they're going to want to improve. So a lot of other teams are going to want to or feel the need to improve, and so that can spur on some trade talks. So I think that Detroit definitely has some assets. They have these tradable contracts with Burks and Bojan and even Monty Morris and Joe Harris. Those are very tradable contracts for players who could play a role on playoff teams. And so I think that we have those assets and that we could move and help other teams and maybe bring on some assets for us. And again, I talked about this in past episodes. So if we trade Burks, that could open up playing time for Sasser. If we trade Bojan, that definitely would create a lot of playing time for Asur, which, again, I've been a huge proponent of that. So we'll see what happens there. But, Drew Holiday was a fabulous player. He helped them win the championship. He's one of the best defensive players you've ever seen. And I know when they played in the finals against the Phoenix Suns, he guarded Devin Booker part of the time, and when he guarded Devin Booker, he shut him down. And then Chris Paul went crazy. Then they put him on Chris Paul, and then he shut down Chris Paul. And he's definitely a great defensive player, but he is not consistent on offense. He's not near as dynamic on offense as Damian Lillard is. And so I think Lillard's going to make a huge change. I still am going to be interesting to see. Giannis doesn't have to sign his contract. This is the Bucks showing Giannis that they're serious about winning and they want to do something. But the reality is that Lillard is quite old, and he's probably going to be really great for at least 2 more years. But after that, how good is he going to be? And so Giannis still could probably want to move on to a different team, just like LeBron. He went from team to team when they started to get a little bit older. He went to a team that was a little bit younger and had some really good players. And so that still remains to be seen. But Drew Holiday is another big domino. So now the Portland Trail Blazers have Drew Holiday, and they have Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and Anthony Simons, that are 3 awesome guards that are just really, really young. And that's their strength of their team. And so they're not going to want to keep Holiday. And Holiday does have an option. He's due $36 million this year, and then the following year he has a player option for $39 million. I am not sure that anybody's going to pay him more than that. I guess he could sign for a contract for more years for less than that, but he has said before that he is only going to play out his contract and then retire. So you never know with players what is going to happen. So I just definitely think that Holiday would be a great fit with Miami. Now, if he goes to Miami, he fits their culture perfectly defensively, and he's a great point guard, a shot creator, and he can score. I followed the Bucks closely in the playoffs, and he would have a huge game where he shot the lights out, and then he'd have a terrible game. But I'm not sure if there's bad blood between Miami and Portland, because Lillard said he wanted to go only to Miami. And then Miami, I think Portland felt like they weren't giving them a fair offer because they felt like they were the only team he wanted to go to, so they were holding Portland hostage. So I don't know, again, if there's bad blood. The Celtics, they're not strong at the point guard. They traded away their point guard, and so we'll see if they try to swing a trade somehow. But here's the thing, with any of these trades, the Pistons certainly have, like I said, they have players that have good contracts and value, and there's 3-team trades, so this trade would not have happened had the Suns not jumped in. Portland and Milwaukee could not have swung this trade, and I know that a big part of it was that Portland. It's going to be interesting to see how Ayton does for Portland. He is a very, very, very talented player. I know there was bad feelings at Phoenix, and I know our coach, Monty Williams, did not get along with him, and they had really struggled and their lack of communication, and he benched him, and I don't know. It just was a weird situation. I do feel bad. I think there's just something about centers, and, there's, like our fans don't like Bagley and Weissman, and I think there's something about the way they act, or the way that maybe they look, and the same thing with Andre Drummond. They look kind of like they're sleepy sometimes, or there's just something about big guys that sometimes fans do not like. So anyway, we'll see what the Pistons do. Like I said, they could be a third team in a trade. It's finally, the stalemate has been broken with this trade, and so I think that will make things could be contagious, and teams will want to make trades before Monday. So I think Lillard lucked out, man. He has much better chance. He wanted to win a championship so bad, and the Miami, they were an 8th seed last year, and they barely got through the play-in. So that is just a weird thing that they had happened, and so he's better off. He's got way better odds of winning a championship in Milwaukee, but we'll see what happens there. And the Suns got Nurkic, and he's not as good as Ayton talent-wise, but they got some other assets involved in that trade too. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. The cool thing is we get to watch Dame play 4 times against our Pistons, because Portland was never on national TV. He played on the West Coast, so he played in another division. So they only played the Pistons twice during each year, and I think he's going to get on much more, and he'll be on more because he plays for the Bucks, and the Bucks are on national TV more. But the Suns have too many players now, way too many players on their roster, and so they might want to swing a trade. I like Nasir Little. He's only 23 years old, and he's 6'6", and he can shoot the 3. And so I think there's chances that he could end up being a player that we could trade. I don't know, maybe the Suns will want to keep him and they'll see him as a part of the rotation, but that's just one of the many possibilities that could happen after this trade. But again, we have the number 1 waiver claim. We get to pick any player we want that's waived, and if they're not traded. And I had somebody say that when I talked about Oklahoma City, they have too many players on their roster, so they're going to have to unload some talented young guys. And somebody said, well, yeah, they'll just end up trading them. But there's too many of them. There's other teams that have too many players on their roster. So everybody's not going to trade for all these guys. So there is a chance. We do have our 15th spot. We only have 14 rostered players. So that's a big interesting thing, whether we're going to add another player. So we could trade, a trade for 2 for 1. So we could trade, say, Bojan for 2 players, and then that would fill up our 15 spots. And that's certainly a thing that could happen. Teams are, like I said, teams are going to be cutting loose some players that are good players that we could add. So a lot of things could happen. We don't know, and I still think that especially with Bojan and Burks, their value is never going to be higher because of their age. They're healthy right now, and they both came off like really great years. Bojan had a career year as great as he's been his whole playing career. He still had his best year ever, and so his value, again, can't be higher. Happy birthday to Cade Cunningham, turned 22 on the 22nd, and he's still a baby. And I tell you, teams that win championships, they don't usually they don't win with teams that are as young as the Pistons. They wait until they're like 26, 27, 28 before players really are effective at winning at a high level in the playoffs. So Rodney McGruder joins Golden State Warriors along with Kojo. And a lot of people are snickering because in 2001, there was a little spat between the Pistons and the Warriors, and Roddy McGruder stepped in, and Klay Thompson made some smart aleck comment about, Roddy McGruder's probably going to be out of the league, just like mocking him because he stepped in there to, stick up for his teammates. And now he's Klay's teammate, so interesting to see how that goes. But I hope that if you're watching on Spotify, that you subscribe and leave a thumbs up. And if you're listening, if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe and leave a thumbs up. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a 5-star review. I appreciate every one of you. Tell a friend that follows the Pistons about this podcast. Be the reason that somebody feels valued and loved and cared for. And go Pistons.